Welcome, my friends. In today's story, we'll dive into the life of a boy who believed he didn't need anyone until one girl made him question everything. It's a slow, emotional story of change, of connection, of quiet love. And as you listen, you won't just feel the story, you'll also pick up natural, powerful English phrases, sentence patterns, and expressions. So stay with me till the end, because this story might just speak to your heart and upgrade your English along the way. So let's dive in. I was raised by my father. My mother left us when I was just a little kid, so young that I can't even remember what she looked like. My father never spoke about her. Whenever I asked, he'd simply say, "She's gone," and that was the end of it. After a while, I stopped asking. We lived in a quiet little house near the river. Not many people came by. It was peaceful, but a bit lonely too. My father worked long hours fixing cars at a small workshop. He came home late, always tired. He'd eat his dinner without saying much and go to bed early. I got used to spending most of my time alone. I'd read books or take long walks by the river, watching the slow, gentle flow of water. I found comfort in the silence. I didn't talk to many people. Honestly, I didn't trust them. At school, I always felt different. While other boys played together, laughed, and shared stories, I sat alone in the corner. I finished my work quietly and left the moment the bell rang. A few kids tried to be friendly, but I kept my distance. Friendship didn't seem real to me, neither did love. My father once told me, "People leave. Don't expect them to stay." I believed him. It felt true. Even the girls at school who smiled at me, I ignored them. If they asked me something, I'd just walk away. I noticed how quickly they switched friends, how easily their feelings changed, liking someone one day, someone else the next. It all seemed fake. Their words felt empty to me. I didn't want to get caught up in that. So I didn't. Instead, I focused on what I could control, my studies, my routine. I didn't need people. I thought I was better off alone. Time went by. I finished school and began helping my father in the shop. Every day looked the same. I'd wake up early, work all day, have a quiet dinner with my dad, then go to bed. The next day, it would repeat. My life was simple and silent. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't really happy either. I just assumed that's what life is. You survive. You work, and that's enough. But then, one ordinary day, everything started to change. Like usual, I woke up, had a quick breakfast, and walked to the shop. My father was already there, bent over an old car engine. He didn't greet me. He never did. I grabbed my tools and started working, thinking it was just another regular day. The air inside the shop was thick with the smell of oil and hot metal. Hammers clanked, engines roared, and grease-covered tools lay everywhere. This was my world, loud, mechanical, and familiar. I didn't expect anything different. But then, she walked in, a girl. She looked around a little unsure, then stepped closer. Her car had some issue. I didn't even bother looking at her face. I wasn't interested. I wiped the grease off my hands and asked, "What's the problem?" She started explaining, but I barely paid attention. I just wanted to get the job done and move on. She thanked me when I was done, but I didn't reply. I figured that was it. Just another customer, just another fix. But she didn't leave right away. She lingered, glancing around the shop. "Do you like working here?" she asked casually. I didn't answer. Small talk wasn't my thing. She smiled and said, "You're very quiet." I stayed silent, as always. But then she laughed. A soft laugh. Not loud or fake like most people. For some reason, it didn't irritate me. I handed her the keys. She thanked me again and walked out. I assumed that was the last I'd see of her. I was wrong. The next day she came back. This time her car was fine. She stood at the door just watching the shop. I pretended not to notice. She walked closer. "Can I watch?" she asked. I frowned. "Watch what?" "You? Work?" she said simply. I shook my head, but she didn't leave. She smiled again. "Okay, I'll wait outside." I didn't get it. Why was she here? What did she want? But she came again the next day. And the next. Sometimes she'd ask a question or two. Sometimes she just sat outside quietly. She wasn't loud. She didn't try to force conversation. Just there. My father noticed. "She's different," he said one day. I didn't answer. I didn't want to talk about her. But I was thinking about her more than I admitted. One evening I saw her again, this time by the river. She was sitting on a rock, staring at the water like she was listening to its thoughts. I walked past, not planning to stop, but she turned, smiled, and asked, "Do you like the river?" No one had ever asked me that before. I didn't speak, just gave a small nod. She didn't push for more. She sat there quiet as ever, just like the river itself. It felt strange. I told myself she'd eventually disappear like everyone else. But she didn't. And that scared me a little. Days kept passing, and every morning there she was, at the shop. Sometimes with questions, sometimes just watching. My father had grown used to her presence. He even smiled when she arrived. But me? Still didn't understand her. She wasn't like the others. She didn't talk too much. She didn't pretend. She didn't expect anything from me. And maybe that's what made her stand out. She kept showing up, day after day. And I still didn't know why. One afternoon, she walked in holding 2 cups. She placed one gently on the table beside me. "This is for you," she said with a smile. I glanced at it, then said, "I don't drink coffee." She didn't seem disappointed. "Then I'll bring tea next time," she replied casually. Frowned. "Why?" She shrugged. "Because you work hard." I didn't know what to say. I just turned back to my tools and kept working. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw my father take the coffee she brought and smile at her. He liked her, and I couldn't understand why. Soon, she started coming in the evenings too. Sometimes I'd see her sitting by the river, other times just walking quietly near the shop. She didn't ask me questions. She didn't expect anything. She was simply there. Still, I thought, one day she'd get bored and stop showing up. But she didn't. One evening, I found her sitting alone on an old bench near the river. The sun was dipping low, casting gold over the water. I was tired, but for some reason, I walked over to her. "Why do you come here every day?" I asked. She looked at me, then smiled softly. "Because I want to." Her answer didn't make sense. "You don't even know me," I said. She tilted her head and replied, "Maybe I do." I shook my head. No, you don't. She fell silent for a moment, then said quietly, Maybe you think everyone leaves, but I'm still here. Those words did something to me. They hit something deep. My chest felt heavy, like I was carrying a weight I didn't notice before. I didn't reply. I just sat down beside her. The sky darkened slowly, and we stayed there together, saying nothing, but somehow it didn't feel empty. The next day, she kept her word. She brought tea. She placed it near me, just like before. I looked at the cup for a long time. Then, without saying anything, I picked it up. It was warm in my hands. I took a small sip. She smiled, but she didn't say a word. And honestly, she didn't need to. Something inside me was shifting. I couldn't explain it. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel completely alone. She became a quiet part of my life. I hadn't asked for it. I hadn't planned it. But now I noticed her absence. Every morning she came to the shop. Every evening she sat by the river. Sometimes she talked, but never too much. She never asked the kind of questions that made me uncomfortable. She never pushed me to speak. She was just there, and I let her be. Then one day she was late. I was in the middle of fixing a car, but I kept glancing at the door. She wasn't there. I told myself it didn't matter. I worked harder, trying to drown out that odd ache in my chest. But as the hours passed, she still didn't come. And for the first time, I realized I missed her. I kept telling myself she was probably just busy. Maybe something came up. Maybe she found somewhere better to be. Or maybe she finally got tired of all this. Tired of showing up. Tired of waiting for someone who barely spoke. Maybe she had finally left. But that evening, she returned. She walked into the shop a little slower than usual. Sorry, she said softly. I had something to take care of. I didn't ask what it was. I just nodded and went back to my work. But my hands, they weren't steady. They trembled a little, and I didn't know why. She stood there quietly, watching me for a few minutes. Then, she placed a small box on the table. For you, she said. I frowned. Why? She just smiled and replied, Open it later. Then she turned and left. That night, I sat on my bed holding that box. It was small and plain, nothing fancy. I hesitated before opening it. Inside was a keychain. A tiny silver key hanging from a simple black string. It didn't sparkle. It didn't shine. But it felt right. It was simple, like me, like my quiet life. I didn't understand why she gave it to me, but I held it in my hand for a long time. And finally, I slipped it into my pocket. The next day, she came like usual, as if nothing had changed. I wanted to ask about the keychain, but I didn't know how, so I just worked. And she watched, like always. But something had shifted. I could feel it in the air between us. One evening, while we were sitting outside, she suddenly asked, Do you ever think about leaving this town? I looked at her, puzzled. Why? She shrugged. Just wondering. Do you ever want to see what's out there? I shook my head. This is my home. She smiled softly. Home isn't always a place. I didn't get what she meant, not fully, but I didn't ask. I just kept thinking about her words. Weeks passed. She kept coming, and whatever was locked up inside me began to change. I didn't push her away anymore. When she talked, I listened. When she brought tea, I drank it. When she sat by the river, I sat too. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Then, one day, my father said something that caught me off guard. "She cares about you," he said gently. I frowned. "She's just being nice." He shook his head. "No, it's more than that." I didn't reply. I didn't want to believe it, but the thought stayed with me. That evening, I saw her by the river again, and this time I found myself walking past her. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. I sat down beside her, and we stared at the water together. Without thinking, my hand reached into my pocket and pulled out the keychain. I held it in my palm like it meant something, because suddenly, it did. She saw it and smiled. "You kept it." I nodded. "Yeah." The sun was setting behind her. The sky was painted with orange and pink, and the air had that soft, cool feel that comes right before night. I looked at her, and for the first time, I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest for weeks. "Why do you stay?" She didn't look surprised. She didn't even pause. She just smiled and said, "Because I want to." And for the first time, I believed her. She kept coming, every day, without missing a beat. Morning visits to the shop, evenings by the Gee River. And each time something inside me shifted. It started small, a quiet thought, a gentle feeling, but it grew. I found myself waiting for her, listening more closely when she spoke, looking toward the door before she even arrived. I didn't know what it meant, and honestly, I was scared to ask myself. Then one afternoon it rained. The sky turned dark and heavy drops danced on the shop's tin roof. No cars came that day. My father closed early and went home. I stayed behind, alone, listening to the rhythm of the rain. She won't come today, I told myself. No one walks in this weather. But then I saw her. She stood at the doorway, soaked head to toe, rain dripping from her hair, but smiling. "You're still here," she said cheerfully. I frowned. "You're wet." She laughed, brushing water from her sleeves. "Yeah, I know." I sighed and walked inside to grab a towel. She took it without saying much, patted her face dry, and sat quietly on the old chair near me. For a while, she didn't speak. She just listened to the rain, her eyes half closed like it was a lullaby. Then suddenly, her voice broke the silence. "Do you ever feel lonely?" The question caught me off guard. I didn't answer right away. No one had ever asked me that before. I'd always been alone, but was I lonely? "No," I finally said. "I don't need people." She looked at me, not judging, just gently. "But you let me stay." I opened my mouth to deny it, but nothing came out. She was right. I never told her to go. I never asked her to stop coming. Somewhere deep down, I wanted her there. The rain kept falling. The sky was dull and gray. The air inside the shop was cool, but with her sitting across from me, it felt warm somehow. I didn't know what to say next, so I said nothing. And for the first time in my life, that silence didn't feel empty. It felt full, like something was quietly blooming in the space between us. As the days went by, I started noticing things. Small things. How she gave a soft laugh when she felt nervous. How her eyes drifted to the sky whenever she was deep in thought. How she always chose the same rock by the river, like it was her special place. I didn't want to remember these details, but I did. They clung to my thoughts, even when I tried to brush them away. One evening, she sat by the river as usual, but this time she was quiet, more than usual. I sat down next to her. "What's wrong?" I asked. She let out a soft sigh. "Nothing. Just thinking." I waited, hoping she'd say more, but she didn't. So I stayed. We sat there in silence, watching the sky change colors, the pinks fading into blues, the wind brushing softly through the trees. It felt calm, peaceful, but something was different. I didn't know what it was yet, but I could feel it. Then, she turned to me and asked, "If I leave one day, will you miss me?" The question hit me like a wave. I looked at her. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I didn't care. But the words didn't come. I stayed silent. She smiled, but it wasn't like before. This smile was soft, almost sad. "It's okay," she said gently. "I already know the answer." That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in my mind. I tried to push them away, but they stayed. They wrapped around me like the wind from the river, quiet but cold. I stared at the ceiling and for the first time asked myself a question I had never dared to ask. What if she leaves? And for the first time, I was afraid of the answer. The next morning, she didn't come. I told myself it was nothing. She was probably busy. She'd be there later. But the hours passed, and she didn't show up. The shop buzzed with engines and tools, but everything felt still. The river flowed, the wind blew, but it all felt hollow, like something was missing, something I didn't want to name. The next day, she was still gone. I waited and waited, but she never came. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't care, but I did. That evening, I walked to the river. Her bench was empty, the one where she always sat. The air felt colder than usual. The sky was dull and gray. I sat down, even though I knew no one was coming. The river moved slowly. The trees whispered in the wind. But it wasn't the same. Then, I saw it. A small note resting on the bench. My hands felt heavy as I picked it up. The paper was soft, slightly wrinkled like it had been left in a hurry. My heart beat faster. I opened it and read the words. I had to leave, but I was right. You will miss me. I read it again, and again. My chest tightened. My hands shook. I wanted to ignore it, pretend it didn't matter, but I couldn't. Because she was right. I missed her. I missed her quiet presence, her soft voice, The way she always sat in the same spot by the river. The way she looked at me like she understood something I didn't. That night, I sat on my bed, holding the keychain she gave me. I turned it between my fingers, feeling its shape, its weight. It was simple, just like her, just like me. She was gone. But somehow, she was still here. In my thoughts, in my days, in the quiet spaces she used to fill. I had spent years building walls, keeping people away. I told myself I didn't need anyone. But now I knew the truth. Somehow, without even realizing it, I had let her in. And now, I didn't know how to close the door again. Some people don't stay forever, but sometimes they don't need to. Their presence, their smile, their silence, it stays with you even after they're gone. He never asked her to come. She never asked him to change. But she changed everything, just by being there. And when she left, he realized that the heart he had locked away for years had already opened, quietly, without warning. And now, he couldn't close it again. If this story touched you, drop a comment saying, "I felt it." And don't forget to like and subscribe for more such stories that teach you real English and real emotions.